Scout Sunday. We're actually kind of moved a week later. We had our 20th anniversary preschool celebration last week, so we had to move this back a bit. But as I was doing some research on the Scouts, and this is from 2010, 2/3 of Scouts were sponsored by a faith-based organization across the country. 1/4 of Scouts are sponsored by some kind of a nonprofit civic organization, and then the remainder are educational institutions that sponsor them. And so some Scouts have enjoyed a long partnership with churches in this country. And for those of you who are not Scouts, I thought I'd share their mission statement with you this morning. It is a mission of the Scouts to serve others by helping to instill values in young people and in other ways to prepare them to make ethical choices during their lifetime in achieving their full potential. The values we strive to instill are based on those found in the Scout Oath and Law. As I thought about that more and more, it seems like it boils down to helping these students grow to be good citizens, productive members of society, people who know the difference between right and wrong, people who, if they are not in a Scout meeting, you can tell who they are because they're acting like Scouts. They know what to do and what not to do. And I think about that with the church too. It's no wonder they have such a long partnership, because the church is about creating people who are good citizens, not just of this life, but in the kingdom as well. I thought I'd share a little trick I do with you this morning. So some of you may be from different faith traditions, and that's fine. So I've got this white kind of robe-looking fabric. That's kind of all. That represents my baptism in Christ. And so when we are baptized, the Bible says we put on Christ. And then underneath this, I have on a clergy shirt, which you probably have, so people know immediately who I am. So traditionally, the black represents the sin of the pastor, and then the white is the light of Christ shining through as the gospel is proclaimed. It's by my neck, because that's where my voice is. And so this is a great tool for ministry, I find, because I can get places that I normally couldn't get. Usually I just dress in normal street clothes, but if I've got something to do on a certain day where I need people to know that I'm an ordained person, I'll put on this shirt. So if I'm leading worship, if I'm taking communion with someone at home, if I'm visiting someone in the hospital especially, I mean, it doesn't matter. They can be in intensive care unit. I just stroll right in, security guards there, doesn't pay me any attention. They know who I am. They know what I'm there for because of this uniform I'm wearing. That's a great, great gift to have. Plus, as an added perk, sometimes I get free parking at the hospital. Sometimes. $2 adds up. And I know that people also are aware that I'm wearing this while I'm driving, because when I was in seminary, I remember it was a very hot summer day in Ohio, very humid. And at that time, I was still driving my 1998 Chevy Luna. That car had 360,000 miles on it, and it finally died. And I remember I was so frustrated because I had just gotten the seat where I wanted it. And then I of course, that car, I mean, it was not a very nice sight to behold. The plastic wheel covers had begun to rattle, so I had taken those off and thrown them out. It had a piece of trim on the side that was sticking out, so I just grabbed a hold of that and tore it off one day. Had dents all over. I mean, honestly, this car looked like I stole it from the devil himself and drove it out of hell. And the air conditioning, of course, did not work. That had been long gone. And so I had all the windows down. And I remember the looks I would get when I drove that car wearing a clergy shirt. I mean, people would look at me and think, I know they were thinking, wow, the Catholic Church has really fallen on hard times. I mean, look at that poor priest over there. Look what he's got to drive. But the trick I want to show you is a trick that I only do on occasion. And it's usually on I-85, either coming to or from a hospital in Charlotte. But you see that little tab? So it's just a little piece of plastic. If I give it a tug, now clergy shirt. Now it's just some guy wearing a black shirt driving the car. No big deal. Why would I do that? I try to control myself on the road. I really do. I try to be a good driver. I try to be courteous. But after a while, I get frustrated. I start noticing that these people are just worthless drivers. And when that tab comes off, if you're in the car with me, you know it's go time. I'm going to do a little razzle-dazzle. I'm going to drive in a way that they probably would not expect an ordained person to drive, but I'm going to make it home safe. I'm going to show them some maneuvers they may not have seen before. But I think about that as I read this passage this morning. Now we, in this congregation, we are on the lectionary cycle. So the lectionary is a 3-year schedule where if you attended worship every single Sunday for 3 years, you would get to hear about 70% of the Bible in Sunday morning. Pretty good chunk. The remainder is a lot of stories that are really just kind of strange or inappropriate for worship. The Bible is not a children's book. It really isn't. I like having kids in the Bible, but there's some stories, I think as parents you got to maybe introduce them to later in life. But this is the assigned reading for this Sunday. And honestly, this is one of those passages that I wish Jesus had never spoken, because I got to deal with it. Now last week we heard all about some great news from Jesus. Jesus said, you all are the salt of the earth. You are the light of the world. And now this week, it's the same sermon. We're a few verses in. And Jesus talks about divorce. This, as I look out in the sanctuary, I would be surprised if there is even one family here who has not been touched by divorce. My own grandparents, for both sets, were divorced. My brother was divorced. And divorce is a terrible thing. And Jesus doesn't give much leeway with that. It's just a terrible thing. Now, sometimes, and divorce does not exist outside a sinful world. It just doesn't. But there are times when the alternative is even worse than the divorce, and so we're left with some of these terrible choices in life. But God would never have us go through the pain and tearing and ripping that divorce causes on our life. Having said that, I also notice that we have a tendency of picking and choosing in this passage what we want to focus on. The truth is, Jesus throws us all under the bus in this passage. As I read this passage, there's a whole lot more than just Jesus talking about divorce. Jesus tells us not to make vows. We don't own the heavens. We don't own the earth. We don't own Jerusalem. We don't even own the hairs on our head. We can't even change the color of those. Don't make vows on that. Jesus says, even if you haven't been divorced, if you look at a woman and want her, you have already committed adultery in your heart. And just because you're here and single doesn't mean you're off the hook either. We're all thrown in that. Jesus says, make peace with your neighbor. If someone is angry with you, leave your gift at the altar. Go make peace with them before you give it to God. If you look in your bulletins, we have a sermon, then each week we have the hymn of the day, then we have a creed to profess what we believe, and then after that, before the offering, we have a time to pass the peace. That's why that's there in the liturgy. Jesus says, make your peace before you give your offering. The passing the peace is not a time to shoot the breeze or get caught up in worship, or caught up on gossip, or find out what's going on with mom and them. Passing the peace is an act of worship. It is your last chance to get right with your neighbor so that you can give your offering to God. That's kind of a big deal. The Apostle John says, those who say, I love God, and hate their brothers or sisters are liars. How can you love God whom you cannot see when you don't love your brother or sister whom you can see? Makes sense to me. Sometimes people come and say, well, preacher, I don't really hate them. I strongly dislike them. You know what my response is to that? Quit playing games with words. You know what you mean. I know what you mean, and God knows what you mean. Jesus says, be reconciled. Get right with your neighbor before you make that gift. He starts out by saying, you were told do not murder. A murderer must be brought to trial. But I promise you that if you are angry with someone, you will have to stand trial. If you call someone a fool, you will be taken to court. And if you say that someone is worthless, you will be in danger of the fires of hell. Jesus is not playing games here. And as I read that passage, I think about those times that I've popped my collar off in traffic and announced my neighbor's driving ability as worthless. That's not the ethics of the kingdom of God. The Scouts strive to instill a sense of morality, of right and wrong, so that people can be productive in this life. That's a mission that the church is fully on board with. But as Christians, we add another layer to that. We are working to not only be good citizens in this world, but good citizens in the world to come. Jesus says, don't forget, you are the salt of the earth. You are the light of the world. The truth is, as I read these commandments, we have all broken every one of these commandments. And yet God continues to forgive us. God's faithfulness remains. God continues to love us, to hold us, and to send us out again as salt and light. As a people of God, we have been forgiven, and we are sent out to share that forgiveness. This passage from Jesus is all about how to get along. How do we relate with each other? The secret to forgiveness is understanding first how much you have been forgiven. That's where you find the freedom to forgive others. You are citizens of the kingdom of heaven. And we get tastes of that right now as we live, as we love God, as we love our neighbor, as we are reconciled, as we live out these words of Jesus. We are salt. We are light. We are children of God, now and forever. Amen.